Can we get you anything, Chris?
Just a black coffee, please.
Yeah, we'll sort that out for you.
Cool. Where do you need me to go?
You are here, right? Sitting there.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, man.
I love the jacket.
Love the set. Wow. I feel like I'm in Game of Thrones.
I don't know if this has happened to you. I'm pretty sure it has done. You're watching TV and you're like, wow, this guy's amazing. And then like,
I'm
boom,
a real boy.
You're here.
I exist.
You're in front of me now.
I'm a real person. Yeah.
This is Chris Jericho.
But you got to be professional, though, man.
No, man, I can't be professional.
Well, you
right
have
now.
to be.
I'm fucking freaking out right now.
Fuck, we're here. I'm now on your show as a guest.
This is mental.
Of you guys.
Yeah.
So this is cool, but just be cool. Do your thing. This is why I'm here, because you guys have 1.9 million YouTube subscribers.
Soon to be 2, hopefully.
Almost 2 million.
There
After this show's done,
yeah,
you'll have 2 million.
Well,
I'm going to take it over the top.
That's it.
So we're here. Let's fucking rock it, man.
Let's fucking do it.
You're sort of the king of YouTube numbers in a way, because when you look at your YouTube, especially your music numbers, you're absolutely killing it. There's like over 50 million views on.
For Judas, I think it's 55 million.
57, I think
57.
now. Yeah.
But then what did I just see the other day? I saw a video. Oh, AC/DC Thunderstruck.
Right.
1 billion views.
It's incredible, isn't it?
So it kind of puts things in perspective. It's like, yes, we're doing really good unless you're listening to Thunderstruck.
57 million's like, that's almost an unimagined. That's like,
I remember when we did the video for Judas. It was, I guess, probably almost 5 years ago. And one of the girls that was in the video said, how many views do you hope this gets? And at the time, I think we had a video that had a million. And I was thinking, if this one can get to 3 million, that'll be awesome. Now we're at 57 million, so we crushed that goal. So and that's kind of the way of the world now.
Yeah.
How many views do you have? How many followers do you have? Mm-hmm. That sort of a thing. So
I suppose it's always been that way, but now we can track it.
Well, yeah, exactly. You can track it. And so now when you see those numbers, and that actually is currency in this day and age. So when you say, how many Spotify numbers do you have? How many, YouTube views do you have? And Judas just went gold in the States, which means 500,000 units sold.
Jesus. Right.
But nowadays, nobody buys music anymore, right? So it's all based on streams. How many streams do you need for the equivalent of 500,000 units sold? 75 million streams.
Fuck.
Think about that. 75 million streams equals 500,000. It's fucked up, right? I mean, really?
Music artists are surely getting a raw end of the deal there.
Huge raw end of the deal.
Right, yeah.
You don't make money off albums and music anymore.
Right.
It's all about kind of, like I said, the streams. And I think for each stream, it's a 0.0001 cent. So anyways, that's how it is nowadays. So music is now just basically a billboard for your band. You put out a record knowing that you're not going to make money off it, but hoping that people listen to it to come see your shows and buy the merch and all that sort of thing. So things have changed, but it's just the way it is. So there you go. There's your lesson on streaming, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I appreciate it. And also, when it comes to music, obviously I met you as Chris Jericho, the wrestler,
right?
And then later found out about Fozzy and the band and everything like that. But when you hear like someone who's good at one thing wants to do music, like we've seen this with YouTubers doing music in this country, you immediately a bit like, what's this going to sound like?
Well, there's always people are thinking like, it's some kind of novelty thing.
Yeah.
It's, a vanity project. And we've heard it all before. Trust me, I've heard it all before.
But I was surprised. Like when I actually listened, for example, to Judas, I was like,
well, and that's the thing. I wouldn't do this for 20 years as a vanity project.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it if it sucked. Good music is good music. It doesn't matter if the singer is a wrestler, a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. Who gives a shit? That lasts for the time frame of 1 minute of a song. It's just like Slipknot wears masks. Oh, that looks stupid. How good can they be? Kiss wears makeup. How good can they be? AC/DC as a schoolboy. How stupid is that? Doesn't matter. Once the music plays, then it's either good music or bad music. And I think that's one of the reasons why Fozzy has really gotten to the next level now, is that people know now for sure it's like not some kind of, side project or, it's just a great rock and roll band with great songs and great live shows. And who cares if Chris Jericho's a wrestler? I don't care that Bruce Dickinson is an airline pilot. When Iron Maiden plays a show, I don't want him to tell me about how to fly a plane. Conversely, if I'm on a plane and Bruce is the pilot, I don't want to hear him sing Run to the Hills. I want him to fly the fucking plane and make sure we don't
I want
crash.
both. I want both at the same time.
Well, see, you're a demanding.
Yeah. Hey, I've paid to be in business.
Well, that's my point. Is fly the plane, sing the songs, wrestle the match, sing the songs. We don't really combine the two, nor should you, because they're two separate entities. And there's something I talked to Rob Zombie about this on my podcast when he started making movies. People were angry. How is Rob Zombie going to make a movie? He's a singer. What does he know about making movies? That's such a stupid attitude to have. How can Chris Jericho sing when he's a wrestler? What does that even fucking mean? What does that mean? Because you're one thing, you can't do something else. And I think in this day and age, more than ever, people do both. And when I mean both, they do more than one thing.
But you find that people who are good at doing more than one thing are also good at reinventing themselves at one thing as well. And that's one thing that you've done amazingly well. Like your career being 30 plus years now in wrestling. I watched this documentary about you before today, and I just seen like how many iterations and how you're constantly, right, what's the next version of me? Why are you so good at that?
Well, first of all, thank you. Why? I don't know. I think, so I'm a huge David Bowie fan, and not necessarily even like knowing every Bowie song and every album. Just the concept of what Bowie did, where he always reinvented himself. And you look at Ziggy Stardust to Aladdin Sane to the Thin White Duke to the Tin Machine to the Button Eye. It was always something new, always reinventing. You could dress up as David Bowie for Halloween, and I could dress up as Dave, and you could dress up as Dave, and we have everybody's wearing a different costume, but you know who it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I always wanted to do with Chris Jericho. It's like, you can dress up as Jericho. Every Halloween, I post pictures of people who dress up as me, but they're all different versions of Jericho. There's 10 different versions that you could dress up as. That comes from Bowie. And the reason is I never wanted to be a nostalgia act. Even 20 years ago on Raw, when I was looking at Raw and SmackDown, and we're like, okay, it's live twice a week, every week. That's like 104 shows a year. If I'm doing the same thing every show, it gets boring quickly, and you become kind of nostalgia. And if I leave the company for a while and come back and do the same thing, it's boring. And so I never wanted to do that. So probably on the other side of the coin, I change and evolve whenever I start feeling just a little bit stale. I always call it reading the room. I read the room. How are the fans reacting? Now social media is a very valuable tool to judge how people are reacting to what you're doing. People complain about everything. That's fine. Always angry about something. But when they start talking in a way where I can think they're starting to get bored of me, time to change it up. And so I never have a problem that people are like, oh, we love Y2J and we love The List and we love, this. Those are great moments and great points in my career, but I will never go back to it. I will never go back to it because it's done. If I go back to it, it's like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't mean it's any less cool, but you have to move forward. At least I have to move forward with everything that I do and have these great moments in the past, but they stay in the past because they're a product of their time. I couldn't do Y2J in 2022 because that was a product of 1999.
But it needed to be that year, didn't it?
Yeah, and it was a great kind of tagline in WWE. But then in 2008, when I turned into the suit and tie guy, bad guy Jericho, I said, don't ever call me Y2J again on commentary. There is no more Y2J. And there's no more Countdown. And there's all those things that were kind of synonymous with Jericho. It's done. What do you mean? I don't ever want you to fucking call me Y2J on commentary again. Because that's done. We need to move forward and let people know this is a new character. It's a new guy.
How did people react to that? Because
they hated it at first.
I mean, not the public, but within the company, because you've built a very strong brand, and like other wrestlers, Undertaker, people like that, they're known for certain things.
But Undertaker changed too. If you
absolutely,
look, he was biker Undertaker, and he was very good at being almost a Bowie style character in wrestling, of still staying the Undertaker but changing the vibe of it. You can't do the same thing every show, every week, every month, every year. It just gets stale. And the last thing you want to be as a performer, whether it's music or wrestling or comedy or football or whatever it is, the last thing you want is to be stale. And I'm really good at smelling the staleness before anybody else does. and changing. So it looks like I'm ahead of the curve rather than being behind it. But I always can, like I said, when you smell that staleness, it's not very, it doesn't take long for everyone else to. It could be a week, like it could be 2 weeks. And when it happens quick. And then you kind of get put into the also ran category. I never wanted to be there.
When I look at you doing that compared to some other top guys in the business, I feel like you have really done that better than them. Like when I look at The Rock, no disrespect, but The Rock's basically played the same character in every movie for the last 15 years, and he's been the same wrestler for the last 20. That's no disrespect. It's an amazing trick, but it's people are obsessed with it. But I don't know. I find it's a skill in itself, what you've managed to do. Looking back at when you did start off against The Rock, what an entrance that was. Like that was, they called that the greatest debut in the history of wrestling. You've had quite a lot of these moments that people go, that was the best that we've seen, the first time that anyone's been undisputed. How does it feel looking back at your career now, knowing you've had all those moments? Like,
well, I mean, it's always cool to look back at those things, and maybe, you know, someday, well, actually, I was going to say sitting in a rocking chair on the porch, which I'll never do. Fucking kill me if I ever do that.
What will you do?
I'll just, dude, I saw the Stones on Sunday at Hyde Park, and like that's me. I look at Mick, and he's not just, he's so good for 7. No, he's just fucking good. They're just a great rock and roll band, and they're the best rock and roll band. And I see a lot of concerts and listen to a lot of music, and the Stones are still the best. Not for their age. I hate that. The Stones are so good for their age. Fuck that. They're fucking good for any age. Any age. And any rock and roll band needs to bow down to the greatness of the Stones and also to the inspiration that you get from watching them. So I see Mick and the energy that he has, and it's like this is going to be me at 78. Whatever I'm doing in entertainment, I've been in entertainment since I was 19 years old. It's like in show business. And that's what wrestling is. It's show business. So, anyways, to answer your question, looking back on those big moments is always cool. And that's one thing I like about social media is they'll say, today I had one of the greatest matches of my career against Ultimo Dragon in Tokyo. That was the match that essentially got me into ECW and WCW. It happened 27 years ago today. I would never know that except for social media. So sometimes those anniversaries come up, you're like, fuck, that's really cool. And then I go back and think about that match or maybe watch some highlights of it, and you're like, man, that was a good match, or that was a good entrance with The Rock. But I don't, plant my flag in it and think that was the greatest moment of my career, because it was one of many. And when people say, what's the greatest incarnation of Chris Jericho, I always say this one right now. Because if I say, the Y2J was the best, or the list guy was the best, or the suit and tie guy was the best, that would infer that what I'm doing right now sucks. So what's the best Chris Jericho right now?
I mean, that's the point of evolving, and I agree with you. Yeah. You've clearly taken it to new levels. But
it's up to, not to interrupt you, but it's up to the fans and the people that appreciate my work. You guys decide what your favorite Jericho was, and you can choose anyone you want to. That's your right, and I love the fact that there's all these eras that you can choose. But to me, I have to stay current and have to stay in the now. And I really do believe that the Chris Jericho now is my favorite, because there's so many great things happening. So that's my opinion. You have yours, and that's the beauty of being a fan of wrestling or music or anything. You can choose whatever you want.
I like the next Chris Jericho.
The next one's really good.
One of the themes behind your career, I feel, is pushing the boundaries and pushing up against authority. And when I watch all these documentaries I've watched about you now,
I'd like to see these documentaries.
They're good. They're fan made.
I don't know if I've seen them.
They're very good. And it seems like you got pissed off a lot by being held back. Now, obviously, the WWE favoured the monsters, the giants, and you came from a different angle of, you weren't a small guy, but obviously your attributes were different to theirs. And it felt like just when I thought you were the guy that they were going to push, and they'd hold you back a little bit. And it does feel like there was a lot of frustrations there over the years. What is it like to feel, I should be the guy now, but yet they won't let me just run with it?
I never, obviously you would have frustrations, but it's business, and you have to be a big boy. You know what I mean? The WWE is a giant machine, and it's run by Vince McMahon. Obviously, it's an audience of one.
It was.
It really is. I mean, you have to be. Vince has to want to make you the guy. It doesn't matter if 1 million people want you to be the guy. If Vince doesn't see it, you're not. It doesn't matter if 1 million people don't want you to be the guy. If Vince wants it, it happens. So I had been in the business for 9 years before I got to WWE, and had worked on top in all those companies and countries, Japan, Mexico, ECW, WCW. And I wasn't like the world champion, but you can, once again, you know how to navigate and you know how to play the game, and you understand the politic side of wrestling. So I was, at times when you feel held back or all those things, yeah, it was there, but I also knew it was like, tough luck. Fucking pull up your pants and be a big boy, Jericho. Like, this is just the way it is. So I always strive to do better. And that's why I think in 2008, when I keep referencing suit and tie guy, Jericho, that was the first time in 8 years of working for Vince that he saw in me what I saw in me. This guy can be the guy. And I was the guy in that company in 2008 and 2009. I called myself the best in the world at that time, and I believed it. Not every night, but most of the time. There's nobody in the world that's better than Chris Jericho as a pro wrestler. Go to Japan, give me fucking all the names from there or wherever else. Nobody's better than me. And I think that's when Vince felt the same. So it took a while, but I earned that spot. And never, you can't go into it with bitterness and thinking they owe me this. The business owes you nothing. That's the number one rule that we learned in the Hart Brothers camp in 1990. The business owes you nothing. So don't ever think that you fucking are worthy of a career, deserve a career, because you have to keep working always. I'm working my ass off now. AEW owes me nothing. Oh, you're Chris Jericho. Who gives a shit? Great, I'm Chris Jericho. But I still, because I'm Chris Jericho, there's still a level of quality that I have to bring to the table to continue to keep the spot that I have. I have to earn it every day. There's no sitting back and resting on your laurels in pro wrestling or any job. Because when you start feeling that way, that's when you start going down. And then you're like, well, I'm Chris Jericho. I deserve this. You don't deserve anything. You deserve what you're getting and what you're giving at the given moment of right now here in 2022. So yes, there was frustrating times, but in the back of my mind, I'm better than this. They don't see it yet, but they will. Because I did it in Japan and I did it in Mexico and I did all these places working on top. So when I got to WWE, even there were times when things sucked, I still knew I know how to do this and they will see it soon enough, and they did.
The Vince McMahon thing's interesting. He's going through a lot right now. What do you make? Because it's kind of storyline comes reality. Like, we watch this guy joke around about getting into compromising positions with employees and Trish Stratus bending over in front of him and all these funny moments and people kissing his arse in the middle of the ring, and now all of a sudden it's alleged that he paid someone off a good few million to keep quiet after an affair. Is there surprise within the wrestling industry that happened?
Not really. I mean, is there surprise in any industry when it happens? And really, when you look at it, it's really not illegal. He had an affair, paid the lady off to not say anything, and moved on. So it's almost like, okay. And people want to jump on it, but there's still always a undertone of it's wrestling. Oh, it's just wrestling. And if you look, that story came out with a bang, and then you really haven't heard anything about it since. If this was, Hollywood with Harvey Weinstein and that sort of thing. But the difference between that was he was holding women back from getting gigs, Harvey Weinstein. You either bang me or you don't get the starring role. This has never been said in Vince's thing. There was a mutual acknowledgement of this affair, and then he paid the lady to say nothing, and she took the money. So, I really know Vince well, and it sucks that it happened. It sucks that he did it, but is anything really going to happen from it? I really don't think so.
He's putting a public front on. He's certainly not acting like someone who's got anything to be ashamed of.
He never does. He never does.
The fact that he walked out on SmackDown straight away and announced SmackDown as if to say, "I'm what?"
That's Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Fuck
and
you.
then he was at the UFC on the weekend. Like,
what are you gonna do about it?
Suited up. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that it'll come and go. And once again, is it morally right? Absolutely not. Is it illegal? No. Is it something that is going to get him in real trouble? I don't think so, because once again, unfortunately, it's just Vince McMahon. It's just wrestling. Of course he's going to do that. So, those things come and go and they happen, and it's too bad, but I really think it doesn't really matter in the long run. And, 6 months from now, I'll either be right or I'll be wrong.
What's your relationship been like with Vince? Like, because I always wonder what it's like to try to make at least a meaningful relationship, or a relationship where you have some leverage with a billionaire who runs the whole company, who is this audience of one, and Vince, to get close to him. Do you know what I mean?
Vince is just a lad at heart.
Really?
You know what I mean? He's just a fucking dude. And yes, he is very intimidating, and he's a billionaire, and he's, the creator of this massive, iconic company. But deep down, he's just a dude that likes to hang out, likes to joke, and likes to drink. But everybody that surrounds him, not everybody, but so many people, he's surrounded by yes men, as most guys in that position are. He doesn't want yes men, and I had a really good relationship with him. I don't have much of a relationship with him now, because obviously I don't work for him, so there's a little bit of a career issue. But if I text him right now, he texts me back in 5 minutes. Always. I loved working for Vince McMahon. I loved how Vince would challenge me and push me. And I also laugh when people say, Vince has lost it, and look at Vince, he's terrible booker and all this other stuff. Maybe it's not great sometimes, but you're also dealing with a guy who's been doing this for 40 years. Imagine doing this for 40 years. I remember when I left in 2005, I said, I need to get away. And he said to me, I wish I could get away sometimes, but I can't. Like, kind of wistfully for like 3 seconds. And he was back to Vince McMahon. Like, of course, it's hard to do this job. But what Vince does the best, and people don't know this unless you really work closely with him, is that he used to say, how am I supposed to do this, Vince? I don't know. I just book the shit, you make it work.
I like that.
Okay, so then I'll come back with an idea, and I've got this perfectly, formulated idea. And let's pretend the idea is this water bottle here, right? And here it is, Vince. Here's my idea. This water bottle, and it's half full, and it says Evian on it, and it's gonna make fucking $1 million for us, I know. And he'll look at it and think about the idea. Now, most people, if we were talking right now and I started thinking, after about 30 seconds, if we weren't on the air, you feel compelled to jump in and talk, create sound. Don't do that with Vince. If he's thinking, let him think. He doesn't want to hear your stupid, small talk. He'll just sit there. And sometimes it's 30 seconds, and sometimes it's a minute. It's very uncomfortable, but he's thinking. And then what he'll do is take the water bottle and turn it, let's say 180 degrees. And then you see this idea that I came up with that I thought was brilliant. And this one little small twist that he adds to it makes it from a good idea to a great idea. Mm-hmm. That's the genius of Vince McMahon. With me, he never came up with the genesis and the foundation of the idea. I would. But when I would present it to him, he would add the one little part that made it great. Mm-hmm. And most of the big hits and some of the stuff we discussed already was made great by just the little twists that Vince added to it. Like, for example, the greatest entrance of all time, as you said. Mm-hmm. I was at a post office, and there was a countdown clock, countdown to the new millennium, which was at the time 3 months. 5 days, 6 hours, 12 minutes, and 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8, and it was just running this clock. And I was like, that's the perfect way for me to come into the WWE, the countdown clock. So his addition to it was that the countdown would hit 0 right in the middle of The Rock's promo. That was the genius that he added. I never thought of that. I would never suggest that. I just thought it would end, and maybe at the beginning of the show, or it would end and I would appear. He's like, it ends right in the middle of The Rock's countdown. Like, just little things like that. Like, fuck, that's the classic part of it. Mm-hmm. Y2J, I was pitching to him as the name of my finish. And he's like, no, that's not the name of your finish. That's your name. And I was like, me? Like, yeah, you're Y2J. And I was like, really? And fuck, man. I mean, people still chant it to this day. I thought of the idea and the term Y2J. He's the one who saw the overall picture that's much more valuable for the name of you to be that. So that's kind of Vince's genius, is the twists and turns that he adds to these ideas that make them really, really great.
Just absorb.
Did you guys have to go to Brazil for a fucking coffee or what?
Yeah.
Actually, it's actually coming up in the lift right now.
Is it really?
I
love how it's a big production, like Jericho's Coffee. I was expecting a butler to show up with a silver platter.
Gio might come out with that. It does piss me off.
A giant cup of coffee.
No, we're actually roasting the beans ourselves.
Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
The new guy who's taken over the wrestling business, someone who you've worked with a lot, Triple H.
Is he taking it over though?
It seems that.
Is he?
Well, I could be wrong.
Know.
Oh, right.
We don't know, right?
But it seems like, well, Vince is very much still hands-on, which is surprising to me.
Vince's mother just passed away at 101 years old.
Jesus.
So I used to call Triple H Prince Charles.
Thank God it wasn't the other one.
No, but seriously, Prince Charles is the king, right?
Yeah.
Until the queen passed away. And she's been fucking 30, 40 years. She ain't going anywhere. It's like Triple H is the Prince Charles of wrestling, in that
Vince will be so
he's
old.
supposed to take it over, but it might be a long time. I think Vince is 78, so it could be another 20 years. So, and he's not going anywhere. Vince, I don't think Vince will ever give up the throne.
He'll have to die before. Yeah,
I agree.
That'd be a good storyline.
Right,
it kind of is.
Yeah.
It seems like Shane has been passed over, and it seems like they're leaning more towards Triple H anyway.
Well, they were, but then it seemed over the last 6 to 8 months that they kind of stepped away from that. So I mean, I don't know. I don't work there anymore, but maybe he will be the heir apparent, but who knows?
There was rumors of him and Stephanie parting ways, but that doesn't look like it's happening because they were seen together recently. But
he's good at the politicking, though, I think, isn't he?
Thank you.
Good.
Wow.
See?
Apologies,
Fresh.
Chris.
What we'll do is we'll cut that in as if that came at the start of the pod.
No, keep it. This is real. You guys want the real behind the scenes story.
Absolutely.
And part of it is that it took you guys 30 minutes to get me a cup of fucking coffee.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. We like to keep you guessing. There was actually a countdown in the back, and we wanted it midway through your promo.
The coffee countdown. But yeah, so maybe he'll take over when Vince is ready to leave his post, aka when he dies. But it could be a long time.
It must be difficult to balance all that. That, like, you know, obviously wrestling kind of takes a huge element of ego, right?
Well, I think anything in show business does. But
right.
Yeah.
But with say a Triple H, and then obviously Vince has got his own ego. There are a lot of things to kind of
manage.
Yeah, you know, all rubbing up against each other. How did you sort of fit into that? Because in listening to you tell some of your stories, I always find it interesting. Obviously, you've got, you know, your great ideas. You speak about WrestleMania 29 when you had to bring in Fandango, and you kind of you're almost quite. I think what a lot of people appreciate you in this long-winded monologue is that you're quite giving as a wrestler in that sense, and a lot of other people appreciated that.
But you act as though I'm like such a great guy for being giving. It's your fucking job. Like, that's what the job is, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to do this for so long at a high level is you have to be giving. You have to create new stars. And I remember back when I first started, it was like, you know, no one's going to take my spot, and you know, I don't want to give up my spot, and it's all about your spot. Nobody is taking Chris Jericho's spot because nobody can do what I can do. There's only one Chris Jericho. So to continue to stay relevant and to continue to contribute and be a top guy, the definition of that is to be giving, to create new stars. When we started AEW, it was solely on my back. I really believe that, because if you look at the roster, unless you were a hardcore wrestling fan, no one fucking knew any of those guys.
I didn't even know what AEW was, and then I heard that you were joining AEW. I was like, oh, what's this then?
So there's a perfect example. So Chris Jericho's there?
Yeah.
Really?
I didn't even know
Well, let's check it out, and then you see all the other, you know, great guys. But I knew right out of the gate, I have 3 to 6 months to make as many stars as I can, because if not, I can't. As great as I am, and as great as I think I am, if I'm the only guy in the show for 6 months and the only star, it's going to die. Mm-hmm. It is. I can't do it all. I'm not fucking, you know, Michael Jackson or Elvis or somebody like that. So I knew very quickly I had to create stars right out of the gate. And that's why we concentrated on reinventing Cody. Think about Cody when AEW started. He was not the Cody that he is now. Nobody knew who Kenny Omega was. Darby Allin, Scorpio Sky, Moxley. He was not the guy that he is now when he came into our company. Excuse me, Jungle Boy. All of those guys I worked with early on in the process to let people know, Young Bucks, Inner Circle. The first night we created Inner Circle to show, here's some new guys. Who's Sammy Guevara? I didn't know who Santana Ortiz was. Jake Hager was not the guy he is now. He was a useless character in WWE. Mm-hmm. So we built these stars in 3 months, and that's when we got a television deal for $160 million for 4 years. When we started, we were an ad revenue share. Ad rev is what it's called. What does that mean? Any company that buys advertising on our show, we split it with the network. Mm-hmm. That's the money that we're making. You're not getting a dime.
What was the split?
I don't know. Fuck, so let's say it's 50-50, whatever. How much does an ad cost? $10,000? Here's $5,000. What's $5,000 do? Nothing. So in those 3 months, we built the company to where our demos were so good. And when I say that I'm the demo god, it's a real thing. The demo is the number one most important thing for television revenue. And the demos were so good. That's how we got that huge TV deal, $160 million for 4 years, like I said, solely because of the work that I did and all of us, but to build the stars. So that's my job, is to be giving. Had I not been giving, we might have not got that television deal. We might not be in business today. So it's my job to be giving, and it's the most important thing for me to do at this point in my career, to spread this star power to as many guys and girls that I can.
But you do seem relentlessly positive, and I think that's what a lot of people do like about you, and I think a lot of your colleagues like the same. But was there ever a moment where you were a bit like, I have given quite a lot here, you know, you're a bit like, fuck this, I'm going to be the guy who acts like, you know.
I remember one time I had a hair versus hair match against Kevin Nash, and it was I think in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I was trying to put together this match. I don't remember if Nash wasn't there, or if he was like not interested in, and Nash, Kev is a great guy, and fucking nothing but respect and love for him. But at the time, something was wrong with him that day, and he was something like, I can't remember exactly, but I remember thinking, fuck this. I'm sick of trying to be the guy that puts together the match and be the guy that makes this fucking dude look good. If he doesn't care, I don't care. I'll go out there and have a fucking shitty match. I don't give a shit. And I said that to Pat Patterson. I'm going to go out there and have a shitty match. I don't care. And Pat goes, no, you won't. I said, what do you mean, Pat? He goes, you can't. You don't have it in your DNA to go out and have a shitty match. You care too much. And he was right. I care too much. So maybe sometimes you get frustrated and angry and pissed off, but once again, this is big business. So be a man. Pull up your pants and be a man. And
you're quite a brave guy.
Well, you have to be in this business. You know, you have to be.
I heard you once stood up to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I did.
How did? Can you?
I'd fucking stand up to him again right now in the moment.
What I believe you. What led to that happening?
He was doing a match with Randy Orton, and he was basically like just butchering him with elbows to the head. And I didn't know if it was planned or not, and nobody would tell me if it was planned or not. And listen, wrestling is a hard-hitting sport, but elbows to the side of the head can kill you. Your temple, if you get hit hard enough in the temple, you die.
Especially with Brock Lesnar.
Well, especially with anything. Have you ever heard of David and Goliath? That's how Goliath died, from getting a fucking rock to his temple. So
David was very good though.
When he was hitting him with the elbows, I was just like, if this is real, it's bullshit. If it's been called, it's still bullshit. He's taking liberties, and it pissed me off. And I was in Gorilla, and I was fucking angry about it. And Brock came through, and he saw me angry about it and decided he wanted to come challenge me, and we got into a little bit of an issue, and I was like, fuck this guy, I don't give a shit how big he is. Like, I don't fucking care. It's fucking wrong. And I will fight to the death. If I will stand up for what I believe in to the death. And I remember being like literally nose to nose with the guy, and he's laughing, and he's like, you know, he was actually saying things that would probably get him canceled if I said them to him now, like homophobic terms that you shouldn't be saying.
Fuck.
And I was like, fuck it.
How did that make you feel, though?
I was like, fuck, I'm going to bite his fucking nose off. I'm going to bite his nose off. Like, I see this big, giant, fat nose, and I'm like, if he comes any closer and takes a swing at me, I'm not even saying it as a tough guy. I'm literally going to bite his fucking nose off, and I can see it right now. And I remember King Haku had done that. It was a good friend of mine. It's a good friend of mine. Bit someone's nose off once. I'm like, I'll bite his fucking nose off. See how tough he is then. He might kill me, but he's going to walk around for the rest of his life with no fucking nose. So that's how it made me feel. I didn't care about the homophobic thing. I don't give a shit. I wasn't falling for it.
Right.
I was just, this has gone to the next level now. This is fucking kill or be killed. And I'm going to bite your fucking nose off. Wow. And then it got broke. Triple H tried to break it up, and we both told him to fuck off, which was hilarious. and then Vince got involved, and that's kind of, he got involved and basically, you know, broke it up and told me that he had told Brock to do that, but no one else would say anything before that. And whatever the reasoning was, that's between Brock and Randy and Vince. It's none of my business. But when it got down to the you know, the confrontation, it was real, you know, and you know, had it gone to the next step, I swear to God, I would have bitten his nose off. You can crush my face, but I will bite your nose off.
Have you ever
bit someone's nose off?
Have you ever had someone take liberties with you in the ring, though, where you've had words afterwards and gone, what the fuck was that?
Early on in my career, it happened a few times, especially when you went to other countries. I remember in Japan it happened, in Mexico it happened, but once again, then you just go back to, you know, I grew up playing hockey. You know, someone gets
Canada,
fucking body check them or punch them in the face or whatever it may be. So if someone's taking liberties with you, like, one time is a mistake, 2 times coincidence, 3 times, okay, now he's doing this on purpose, and then you just got to stop it. And because most bullies, how
do you stop it?
Just punch them back. Let them know that I'm not playing this game with you.
Actually, you're in a compilation for a good reason on I've seen this the other day on YouTube of wrestlers who saved another wrestler. I don't know if you know this, but there's a moment where Jeff Hardy,
documentaries,
mate, I do my research. There's a moment where Jeff Hardy's doing some sort of moonsault off the ropes, and it doesn't go right, and he slips, and you sort of push him. And in that moment, you react so fast and you are so switched on. And if you don't push him, the guy could have broken his neck or anything. You know, is that common for you? Is that you're constantly trying to look after these guys?
I don't think it's like, yes, you look after each other. And the Jeff Hardy one, it's not like I had some kind of a revelation of like, I must save this man.
But you even made it look like like you were hurting him. But in reality,
that's part of being a pro.
It was genius.
Things happen in the match. You know, like the fucking word I hate the most that fans use is botch. Oh, you botched that one. Shut your fucking mouth. There's no such thing as a botch. This is a live show. Mistakes happen because why? Because we're human beings and we're live. If it's a movie, I bet you there's a million mistakes in every movie, and you take 2, take 5, take 20, take 50. We have 1 take. So if someone falls down, you fucked up, fuck you. I'll punch you in your fucking face for saying that. Yeah, people made a mistake, but it's not like embarrassing. Yeah, it sucks. We wish it didn't happen, but it's live.
Especially with a Jeff Hardy. I mean, he tries all sorts. It's not always going to be. It
happens all the time.
Yeah.
If you watch like a hockey game or a football game, you know, guys skating down the ice and takes a shot at the open net and misses the net. How does that happen? You think that guy doesn't wish he had another chance at it, but it's done. If it happens in a hockey game, the fans don't start chanting in unison, "You fucked up. You fucked up." If you go to a Broadway play and someone fumbles their lines, people don't start chanting, "You fucked up, you fucked up." You go to a wrestling match and miss a hip toss, people start chanting that. It's bullshit. It's fucking disrespectful. And wrestling fans walk the line of being disrespectful. And it's like Mike Tyson said, everybody's, everybody's got a fucking opinion on social media, but you would never say that to somebody's face. And the same thing sitting in the crowd. Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame, and people are fucking booing the Bushwhackers for being in the Hall of Fame. Fuck you.
I remember them. They were 2 of my first action figures.
You always say that.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah. But people were making fun of those guys for getting in the Hall of Fame at the Hall of Fame ceremony. How dare you?
I can't believe that.
How dare you? Go back and watch it. They were chanting and saying shit or whatever it was. So that to me is like, I love wrestling fans. If there were no fans, there'd be no career for Chris Jericho. But you guys got to keep it in check sometimes and show some respect.
There's a weird line, isn't there?
And
it's the pantomime element of it.
So anyway, so botch. There is no botch. There's mistakes that happen because it's a live.
And people have died in that ring, so that for that reason, the respect should be there because
always.
Yeah, you're putting your bodies on the line, and it's surprising how easy things have gone wrong in the past. Like I've seen like some of these videos where guys have died there in the middle of wrestling moves and stuff like that. I think there was
guys die, guys get paralyzed, guys get hurt really badly. You know, I mean, we just had the blood and guts the other day with some of the most insane things you'll ever see. And Santana tears, you know, I don't even know what the injury is, so I don't want to say it, but whatever the injury was, he fucked up his knee from doing a simple rock bottom.
Yeah.
That's not on top of a cage. That's not falling off a cage. That's not getting hit with a barbed wire bat or whatever. It's doing a wrestling move, and he's out for 8 months. So it happens.
There's the mental health issue of it as well. From the research I've been doing, is like you look at Jeff Hardy. I mentioned him, like clearly put his body on the line for years, but also his mind is obviously taken. It's taken a toll on him. Right. You've wrestled Jeff a lot, I would imagine.
Well, 20 years ago, but I haven't wrestled him since then.
Really? Okay. Well, what do you make of it when a wrestler is publicly in the ring, not in a fit state to wrestle, and that's
it's one of I've been fairly lucky, and I've never experienced that. If I did, I'd end the match instantly.
Really? Okay.
You have to.
Yeah.
You know, and that's once again being, you know, alcoholism or, you know, drug addiction and all those things. I mean, it is a disease. So I've never wrestled drunk and never, as far as I know, wrestled anybody that was drunk. So, but if it ever happened, like I said, you would have to end it quickly because you could get hurt. You could hurt each other. Yeah, it is unprofessional, and Jeff would probably be the first one to tell you that.
It seems like it's the pain that you guys have suffered that leads them down this road. It's like, I'm in pain, and then they start with the pain pills, and then they mix that with some alcohol, and before they know it, that's a routine. And even Brock Lesnar mentioned that when he came into the UFC, he said, it's actually healthier for me being in a cage getting punched than what it is being on the road in wrestling, because that's actually way harder to do regularly. You know, in the UFC, you kind of go into that octagon fighting fit, and you don't have to keep doing it in front of everyone week after week.
It's the maintenance. That's right. How do you maintain your body when you're out on the road? Because you're traveling hotel. It must be a real challenge for you guys.
Yeah, but it's not hard once you learn how to do it. Right. You know, I mean, if you're on a diet, you just bring your food with you. You know, and you sleep when you're tired and eat when you're hungry and that sort of thing. So that's never been an issue for me being on the road. I've been on the road since I was 19, so you can use that as an excuse, right? But you can also make it work. It just depends what mindset you have. One
person I want to discuss with you, one of the biggest shocks for me as a wrestling fan, was Chris Benoit. I was a big fan, as most people were at that point, and obviously the Eddie Guerrero death and then his death in that year. You were close with both of them. When I watched your early years, you wrestled them a lot and seemed really tight with them. I mean, for losing both of them, how did that impact you? And especially the Chris one, like, it was such a bizarre thing to happen that it didn't seem like anyone could have seen that coming.
No, I mean, that was what made it so horrible is nobody saw it coming. Chris was a great guy, you know, and he was an honorable guy. Like, if I had to leave my kids with somebody for the weekend on an emergency, I would have no problems leaving them with Chris. So to this day, we still don't know why, you know, and you'll never know why. And, you know, I've heard every theory, right? Even demonic possession, like every theory in between.
Is there an accepted theory amongst his friends and peers that this is what we think happened?
That's a great question, but I don't really think so, because none of us really...
There was the brain damage thing that a lot of people were pushing.
But still, I understand that. But, and listen, to kill his wife is beyond comprehension, but killing your own son, that to me is the one where it gets to me. So that's the, you know, and like I said, that's the unforgivable portion of the whole story to me. And
I just feel like when people are mentally so ill, they have these notions of, I'm taking him with me, sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess.
That's one of the theories that people put forward for when people do that.
Yeah, once again, like I said, we can analyze it till the cows come home.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, I don't know what happened. We'll never know, and it's a terrible tragedy. Because at the end of the day, Chris was a great friend of mine, you know, and he was a great family man as well. So we'll never know what happened, and we just have to move forward, maybe thinking of the good part of his life, which was everything up until that last weekend. And that's the way I look at it. From a professional standpoint, it's hard for me to watch a Jericho Benoit match, but I'll talk about them all day long because that's part of my career. There's some of my greatest matches involved him. So I have to continue to think about him in that respect, but still very angry and never will understand what happened. So
you wrestled Chyna a lot. And I really remembered that quite vividly because I remember finding it so believable that this woman was beating the hell out of this man. And a lot of people said that was one of the ways that the WWE in the back kind of gave you a lot of credit. Like, he's really carrying her and he's doing such a great job with her. And it felt like you proved a lot. What was it like wrestling Chyna?
Terrible.
Really?
She was terrible to work with. She wasn't good, but she thought she was. And she also was in a position where they were pushing her really big that she could beat up guys. She couldn't.
Obviously.
And like
as viewers, we bought it.
But I never got that credit. No one ever once said, you're making her look good. It was the other side of the coin. I got in big trouble from working with her because at one point, I remember when I first started working with her, Vince was like, don't treat her like a woman, treat her like a wrestler. And she was really stiff too, which means she worked very strong. Listen, and I'm not talking bad of her, I'm just telling the truth. So when we worked together, it was a solid fight in a lot of ways. And I remember one time she got a little bit of a black eye from me, and you would have thought I cut her arm off with a chainsaw. Like, I got in so much trouble, and I was like, fuck, like I didn't do it on purpose, but
I mean, they're having you wrestle her. What do you expect?
Right? So it was a tough position for me to be in. It was my first real angle in the WWE, my first story. But once again, I mean, I did the best that I could, and I think her best matches that she ever had were with me.
Absolutely.
Hopefully prove something to the people that I had to prove things to, but there was a lot of issues with working with her. Yeah.
That's so fascinating because when I was watching this documentary, I was like, I remember that angle so clearly.
You're making this documentary sound like a fucking masterpiece.
I know, man.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
No, but
don't watch this shit anymore.
Shit,
turn on the podcast. Turn on the documentary.
I was kind of like, wow, Chyna was kind of hot. Like, I kind of forgot.
Don't act like you just realised that, because it's on an almost weekly basis that you mention that.
What? No, it's Stephanie McMahon was my sort of
right. Yeah.
I like the boss's daughter vibe.
Oh yeah.
If I was Triple H, I would have done the same thing. I would have been like, I see what you're doing here.
To be fair, if you were Triple H, I don't think you'd have pulled off the
Was there skepticism of Triple H when that was the affair happened, and obviously he left Chyna for Stephanie, where people are like, see what you're doing there, cozying up to the boss's daughter? Oh, people are just like, fuck talking about this now. I don't know if people have that kind of banter backstage.
Yeah, man. I mean, I would love to tell you that there was a huge discussion about it, but it was kind of like, it's really none of my business.
Yeah,
and
fuck it.
Yeah, exactly. It happens, and fuck whatever. I mean, what does it matter to me, you know?
Is there a lot of politicking between wrestlers in that sense? Like, do you guys talk a lot, or is it literally just, hey, you're paired up with him, get in the ring, go practice this? How does it work?
There's a lot of politicking, but you know, like I said, it's like the MJF thing that's going on right now. People ask me about it. It's like if it doesn't directly relate to me, I stay out of it.
Can you explain that? Because I've this guy has invaded my social media, so he's doing something right. This MJF character, right? Like, I'm an old school wrestling fan, so when there's a big wrestling event on, I'll pay attention. But this guy, he cut a promo where he seemed to go off script, and a lot of people were saying it was good, but when you're saying there's controversy, what is that? Sorry.
Well, once again, my point was, whatever issue that he has, and the reason why he cut the promo and all that other thing is like, it's got nothing to do with me, so I stay out of it. Is it an angle? Is it a story? Maybe. But whatever issues there are, like, it doesn't affect me either way. So that's something for fans to debate. And for me, it's like, well, if it's an angle and it pays off by making us money, then it worked. If it doesn't make us money and doesn't make him a bigger star, well, then it really didn't.
It's definitely increased his profile, because
it's got people talking.
I mean, right? I know who he is now, and generally speaking, like I you know, with him being with AEW, I am less aware of their wrestlers than WWE, because their financial push, they can push who they want, you know what I mean? I've got no interest in Roman Reigns, but I can't go anywhere without seeing his face.
Right.
So the kid did something well. In terms of like old school wrestling versus new school, it feels like, to me at least, the believability and the blurred lines of reality versus what's scripted. Back in the day, it felt like those lines were a lot more blurred, and now if you watch the WWE, you can see they're reading things verbatim almost, and it is quite forced sometimes. Whereas maybe with AEW, they're going in a bit of a different direction. What are you seeing as the future of wrestling now? Where are we headed? Because people are, I think, tired of this PG sort of era.
Well, I mean, I think what AEW has done is show people that there is room for an alternative, and it was time. You can't just have a monopoly of one wrestling company, or one rock and roll band, or one football team, or whatever it may be. So I think having the variety and having another company really was the right place and the right time to do it. And that's why we've gone through the roof. I mean, I think here in the UK, our show Dynamite is the #1 wrestling show, more than Raw,
not surprised,
more than SmackDown. Same in Canada. So that just proves the point that people were ready for an alternative. So what's the future of it? I don't know, but I do know that right now I think the business is very strong because of AEW, because there's another place to go. If you get mad at WWE and you're a wrestling fan, well, come check us out. If you get mad at AEW, then go watch WWE. So it's good to have that. It's good to have that alternative, that competition, and the choice. And that's what we provide. We give people a choice. If you don't like this, then you can watch us. And that's really proven to be successful.
When you come out and they play, I've seen some videos of you coming out and they played Judas.
Is it in the documentary?
It wasn't, actually. This was just me just doing more browsing. When you'd first dropped Judas, it was a real special moment. Like, I could see the smile on your face when you come out and the fans are belting this tune out and singing it was like 20,000 people singing word for word. And that was the first for like wrestling, where a wrestler had made a track, it's his entrance music, and everyone's singing word for word, and you had this massive smile on your face. Like,
well, it's more of like acknowledgement, and you're right, it is very unique, and it's something that no one has ever really had before. And that's why, like, when I turned heel a few months ago, and people were like, well, why do you still use Judas? It's such a babyface song. Well, it doesn't matter, heel or babyface. It's a very unique moment that you can only see in AEW. The only place where people are going to be singing along to a wrestler's theme song, especially the theme song that wrestler sang, is here in AEW. So you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face, and to not use Judas anymore would have been a crime. And we discussed it, of using a different song, but Tony was like, no, let's keep using it, because you can only see this in AEW, and it is very cool. And it's one of the reasons why, like I said, I think Judas went gold. It was a hit before we started using it in AEW, but the fact that you could hear it live every Wednesday with people singing along to it, even without music, as we had in Houston last year, it's very special, and you could only see that in our company, on our show. So yeah, it's amazing for me to experience that, because it's like, you forget, this is my fucking song, and everyone is singing it on their own, and they know the words, and it's just a really cool.
There was one moment where you came out without the song, and they sang it word for word a cappella.
Yeah, right out of the gate.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah, it was. MJF had put this stipulation that I couldn't use my song that week. I am sweating like a motherfucker.
That's hot in here, right, bro? Yeah, I think were you boozing last night?
A little bit.
That it helps it helps come out.
Yeah.
I was drinking that.
What was I going to say? This Tony character, how does he differ to Vince as a boss?
Well, he's younger, so he's more excited about things. I love working for Tony Khan. He's very passionate. He's very smart. He's not when it first started, it's like, oh, Tony Khan is a money mark, as they would say, meaning he just gives out money for no reason. Not the case. He's very smart with his money. He runs Fulham Football Club here. He has a lot to do with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL, so he knows big business and big sports, and that's how he treats AEW. So yeah, he's very passionate. He's got a lot of things on his plate, so sometimes it's hard to get in touch with him. But he is a great boss because he cares. so much. Vince cares too, but once again, you're dealing with a guy that's been doing it for 40 years in comparison with a guy who's been doing it for 3 years. So there's a different level of excitement from Tony.
Do you still party hard at this age?
Well, this is not party. Trust me, it wasn't like I went to completely insane. This is just really fucking hot. So thank you.
Yeah, I just wondered because you're a rock star.
Yeah, man.
You got to give the rock star lifestyle.
Drink, but I also enjoy the moderation of it. You know, I never had to check myself into rehab or anything along those lines.
Yeah, fair play.
And listen, you can't be on the road and not, you know, have some fun from here or there. But you got to be cool with it. You got to be smart. You know.
You're in a nice part of London as well, so you can sort of go out and just enjoy some drinks.
You can be relax. In a shitty part of London and still have fun.
Oh no, believe me, I know that. Yeah. Well, welcome. It's a joke. It's a lovely part.
Yeah, a lot of that moderation doesn't. It's not. Other wrestlers have seemed to struggle with that for sure.
It's definitely part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Moderation is always. I guess some of the other wrestlers we've spoken to, like spoken to Undertaker, spoken to Shawn Michaels as well.
Yeah.
They've spoken about how other people. I think there was a time where maybe WWE had a bit of or wrestling in general had a bit of a problem with people being able to moderate themselves and kind of manage their own. What was your sort of experience that around others?
I never had a problem with like the big thing in wrestling that caused a lot of issues was pills. Never took pills ever. I've never been a drug guy. So that kind of helped a lot, you know. Drinking, sure, but never got into pills and the drugs. So I think that was something that kind of probably enabled me to still do this. You know, 32 years in, I was never an addict for that sort of thing.
But when you witness it in other people, like how do you think though? I'm not really trying to get anything specific. I'm just really more talking about your experience of it, where you know you might see someone else struggling with it. Did you ever see that, or is it something that most people kept quite private in a way?
Private, you know. And listen, it was just part of the culture,
right?
You know, if you look at 80s, 90s wrestling, look at 80s, 90s rock and roll. A lot of those guys died too. It was different then. Now it's not so much. You know, you don't see a lot of guys doing drugs. Drugs are kind of in the past.
A bit blasé now, isn't it?
You know, yeah, and that's good. It's funny because people bag on us. Oh, all the guys want to do is play video games now. It's like, well, so is that so bad? You know, it's better than going out and getting fucked up every night and, you know, doing things you shouldn't be doing. So I think that's another reason why wrestling has changed, and guys are so much better athletes now.
Yeah, Ric Flair's going to wrestle again.
I saw, yeah.
Fuck. Fair play. What is he, 70? Must be
73.
Jesus.
But once again, it's attraction. We'll see how it goes. So, once again, good for him. You want to do it? Go for it. Who am I to say don't do it? Who am I to say, oh, what is he doing? Well, fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah, I think it's very much they're doing it like an old boxer having one last exhibition, which I kind of like the idea of that, providing obviously he's safe. Yeah,
people love it.
Were you on the plane ride from hell?
No.
Oh, I read about this where it all kicked off on a plane ride in the WWE, and I think Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle were like fighting on a plane, and there was fucking all sorts going on.
Right next to the exit door. Yeah, I mean, once again, it was a little bit of a different world back in those days, because that was 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
You know, guys would get a little bit crazier back then, but now the guy's a little bit more responsible. And that's good. It's just it's more longevity, and we had way too many guys dying young, and that's kind of thankfully stopped now. So
yeah, it's definitely slowed down. Obviously, we lost Scott Hall in the last year, but obviously that was something that was a very long term situation with him.
But he was still from that same generation.
He was,
So you know, I think that's a good legacy for the modern day. Wrestler, is that the partying and that sort of self-abuse has really gone down.
What about your like family life and that? Because it must be so hard to maintain, you know, these relationships that mean a lot to you when you're either on the road wrestling or on the road performing in your band.
Well, once again, it's not as bad as it was, because for AEW we only work once a week now.
All right.
So you're home a lot more, and when Fozzy goes on tour, obviously you're gone longer, but we've got it down to a science now. Like if we're in the States, we do 5 shows a week with 2 days off. I go home for those 2 days, so I'm home every week at least. We don't go to Europe longer than 2 weeks now. Back in the past it was 3.5, 4 weeks. That's done. I won't do it. So you just kind of prioritize. And when you say to your, agents and managers, we're only doing 2 weeks, it makes for a better tour. They find better gigs, whereas if you're saying, 3-4 weeks, they'll put you in any, we're in Grimsby tonight, right on. We're in Middlesbrough. And now it's like we're not in those cities because we just do bigger ones because there's less dates available. So
Newcastle over Middlesbrough, you go to the good bit.
We actually always go to Newcastle. Newcastle's awesome. But
that's where I'm from.
That's what
I could tell. And not that Middlesbrough is not awesome, but you see my point. You have to do the bigger gigs because you have less time available. And so that's you pick your spot, which really is the smart move to do.
It's a little bit like Dave Chappelle says, though. It's like, his kids look at him when he gets back off a tour and they're like, oh, Mr. Promises back from the road. It's like, how do your kids see you? Are they like, oh God, it's Dad who's that cheesy wrestler? Is it like, it's Dad who's that cool rock star? So what's the image?
No, it's just Dad, and then that's what I've always been to them.
Right.
I remember my dad played pro hockey for 10 years.
Where did he play?
New York Rangers, LA Kings, and St. Louis was in the NHL.
Wow.
And I was, never really understood what the big fuss was. Oh, your dad plays in the NHL. It's amazing. Yeah, but he's just my dad,
Right.
And now I realize how cool it is. Now I go on YouTube and look up Ted Irvin and there's goals that he scored and the fights that he was in and all that sort of thing. But to me, it was always just Dad. And that's the same with my kids. None of them show much interest in wrestling. They think it's cool and they think the music is cool. But like if I, hey, Dad, do you know that Snoop Dogg follows you on Instagram? Yeah, I've known Snoop Dogg. You know Snoop Dogg? Yeah. Fucking know Snoop Dogg. Like, he's fucking always cool. Are we best friends? No, but we know each other. And that makes me cool to them, that I know these famous people. But other than that, I'm just Dad, and that's the way it should be. And that's the way I like it.
What kind of dad would you say you are?
A good one. Involved.
Do you see bits of yourself in, because you're a creative guy, you're an athletic guy, are you looking for like little elements of that in your kids?
A little bit, but kids need to find their way, need to find their own path. And like I said, none of them have ever shown any interest in being a wrestler or being a musician or being in the public eye, and that's fine. If none of them do that, that's cool. They'll find their own paths of what they want to be and what they want to do. So I think what I've imparted into all of them is confidence and the ambition to find what they want to do, and the motto, if you have a dream, follow it, and we'll support you 1,000%, whatever that dream might be. It might not be pro wrestling or going into music, but if it's wanting to be a veterinarian or whatever, let's go for that. So I think my kids have always known that they got a great support system to go and find themselves, and whatever they want to do, they can do it.
Do they ever come and travel with you on tours and stuff?
They don't. People ask that, but it's no fun for them. If I had my kids here, what would they be doing right now? That's
shit question, you're right.
Yeah, it's not a shit question, but it's just one of those things where like life on the road is not easy. And kids, especially, they like routines and they want to be around their friends. They don't want to be hanging around with their dad, waiting around all day or hanging around in some city or something.
Watching a podcast.
Yeah, they want to be hanging out with their friends and doing their own thing. And that's the way it should be. What's
your creative process? Because clearly you have a lot of creativity to reinvent yourself as a wrestler, to think of lyrics, to write songs, all of these things. How do you come up with things?
I don't know. It's the muse. You know what I mean? I remember reading a Stephen King story where people are like, where do you get your ideas? And it's like, I don't know. Where do the ideas come from? They just come. We did Blood and Guts the other day, and I came up with a whole finishing sequence while I was kickboxing. It just came into my head. And I remember it was like 1, 2, and you kind of go into another world for a bit, and you have this whole idea. Same thing with Fozzy, with a song, lyrics, or a concept, a stage show, a set list. It just kind of comes to you. If you try and come up with an idea and sit there with a pencil and a paper and force yourself, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? If you can't think of a finish for a match or a lyric for a song, then just leave it. It always comes. It always does.
I feel like it's a gift, imagination. It's like some just have it, some don't.
Yeah,
there are some people who, as you say, with those older bands that are still doing it, it just keeps coming and coming because it's just they're connected.
Are you a bit of an Anglophile? Like, I asked you that before, but I think we stopped. But like, whenever I watch you speak, you always have these little English words that you drop in.
Well, so I'm from Canada, right?
Yeah.
So Canada and England are basically sister countries, and we have the CBC, which is our version of the BBC. So I grew up with English TV shows, English comedy.
What sort of things did you watch when you were...
Well, Fawlty Towers is the greatest show of all time. To this day.
Yeah.
It still is.
So
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Everything that Ricky Gervais does is based on Basil Fawlty.
Yes.
I mean,
why do you have to stay for just an hour? Now we're unlocking the good shit.
This is the next show. So, but growing up with that, you have that English slant to it.
The sentiment of it.
Yeah.
You kind of did something where you were coming out as your entrance, but they followed you through the back and you got lost or something like that.
Yeah,
and you had that, basically, like the character you were playing, it was kind of Gervais-y in that you were delusional.
That was Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
That came from Spinal Tap, which is another kind of English influenced comedy. And you'll see a lot of that throughout my whole career, and in my whole kind of genetic makeup is the English sense of humor, which is basically the Canadian sense of humor, where you're very dry, but you play things straight. You always play it straight, and that's one thing I love. I do it all the time in AEW. If you ask anybody that works with me, Inner Circle guys, Jericho Appreciation Society guys, play it straight. If you make it into a joke, it's not funny. If you play it straight, that's where the humor comes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's it reminds me of a scene that you and Stone Cold did where clearly, well, you're the heel, and that's why I like you when you're the heel, because you can say the most ridiculous shit with a straight face, and you could see that Austin's like looking at you and you're saying things, and you know, like
he can do it too, though. That's his sense of humor as well.
Yeah.
And when you get those type of guys, that's where the true chemistry comes.
It was so good, man. And you could see he almost burst as well.
I like watching that. That's always a fun bit.
What's Steve like? Because like he obviously changed wrestling, like the biggest guy ever.
Very intense, very funny, and a great guy. He's one of the few guys that still picks up a phone and calls somebody. He'll call me, and when he calls you, you better have 60 minutes to talk, because it's a long conversation. Not a texting guy. He wants to talk to you.
He's old school.
Yeah, and great guy. One of my all-time favorite people that I've met in the wrestling business, for sure.
The Hart family, they trained you. I've heard about the dungeon and Old Man Hart and all of that. What was that experience like, learning it from some of the greatest?
Well, the thing is, the reason why I've always been good in the ring is I was trained properly, and I had a great foundation. You have to learn your basics. You build a house, if you don't have a good foundation, the house collapses. So it's great to know how to do a moonsault off the top rope and do a shooting star press, but if you don't know how to do a lockup, it really doesn't matter. And you'll see that in a lot of modern wrestlers, is the high spots are all there and the athleticism is there, but I'll watch someone lock up sometimes and go, I'm not into this match. What do you mean? It's only been 3 seconds. Yeah, but the lockup sucked. It started shitty for me. So I learned the foundations properly from the Harts and from Calgary, which is a great wrestling city.
Which Harts were you closest with?
Really none of them. They're a very strange group. I'd probably say Brett more than Natty, probably, maybe.
When you say they're strange, in what way?
That's a whole other podcast. It's a large family that grew up in the wrestling business. So I'm
surprised Brett became the star he did, actually. When you see him talk now, or even when I watch his prime, he wasn't the talker. I suppose it was his in-ring ability that gave him that career.
Yeah, and there was a certain charisma that he had.
Yeah, he had a look as well, obviously.
Yeah, and not everybody has their own style, and he knew who he was as a performer and knew who he was as a character and was able to portray that. And that's the most important thing. Not everybody's the same character, nor should they be.
Do you think the screw job, out of interest, do you think he took that a little too much to heart, no pun intended?
To him, no. To him, it meant everything. So I can't talk about how Brett, took it seriously or didn't too seriously, because if I was him, I would probably feel the exact same way.
Really? Okay. Last question. How would you like to be remembered?
Just as somebody who always entertained, and always gave 1,000% in everything that I do, because I take great responsibility in knowing that people are giving me their time to watch a match, to listen to a song, to come to a show, to listen to a podcast, whatever it is, and B, paying money. I don't take that lightly. I remember when I was first starting out in wrestling and somebody would be like, this match sucks. And the guy would go, yeah, well, I got your money, kid, or whatever. I never looked at that. Well, we've got their money. Who cares about the product? People work too hard to feed their families and to make ends meet. So if they have extra money to be entertained, then I damn well better entertain them. And if you've been out drinking, the night before, or if you're tired, if you're pissed off, or whatever it may be, suck it up. You've got a responsibility, because these people have been waiting for 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, looking forward to this show. So if you go on stage and you're like, fuck, I gotta sing Judas again, they've never heard Judas live. They want to sing it and they want to be there. So you have to give your all to everything that you do. So yeah, I would like to be remembered as someone who just gave it his all to make sure that you were entertained. And if you've ever been entertained by Chris Jericho in any way, shape, or form and enjoyed what I did, well, then I take great pride in that.
Certainly have. Thank you very much. That was Chris Jericho on the True Geordie podcast. We'll put the links in the description below if you want to go to see Chris live, or you want to follow the wrestling.
If you want to be entertained by Chris,
let him entertain you.
Yeah, that's the legacy.
And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.